Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Foutz. I live here in the United States. I am actually in a state that's not too far from our nation's capital. I work as a visiting professor in a Department of Conflict Analysis and Dispute Resolution here in Maryland. I also serve as a United Nations Director out of the UN University, which is in Tokyo, and UNESCO, and we're out in Paris. The reason why I wanted to bring up my introduction first is because it relates a lot to why I'm really interested in the Peace360 initiative. And that goes back to mostly my work with the United Nations and its quest for peace. And one of the main goals of the United Nations is to actually save our succeeding generations from the scourge of war. And, undoubtedly, it's great that we have avoided, a third world war. Just today I was sitting down preparing my lecture notes for a United Nations class I'm teaching in the fall, and I was looking at the League of Nations and why the United Nations had been formed. And, it is really great that we have saved ourselves and we've created these global organizations, non-governmental organizations like this Peace360 initiative, and we've saved ourselves from getting involved in the third world war. However, I feel like there's a lot that we still have left to do. We have hundreds of inter and intrastate conflicts going on all over the world. These have been taking place since the end of World War II. We've lost millions of lives globally. Historians have even characterized this 20th century as one of the worst ones. They classify it as an age of genocide and a beastly century. So in the short time span of the beginning of, our 21st century, we've already suffered so many horrific acts of terrorism. And ultimately, we are heirs of our past, and, specific acts and one person trying to make a difference, it can happen. We just have to stay committed and really embody your vision. So I would say that, my educational and professional objectives have been this commitment to honoring and upholding the ideals of the UN cardinal goal, which is to save, succeeding generations from war. And I feel like this is, a vital commitment, or a vital ingredient, I would say, to our evolution. The UN's goal, it's definitely something to admire, because it's an avoidance of the tragic choices of violence, and it can help bring upon lasting peace. What I think is really unique about the Peace360 initiative is that it takes a different approach to making a difference. If you're inspired by impact that is hands-on and an impact that is lasting, and collaborating with people all over the world on like-minded projects such as peace building and conflict transformation, then the Peace360 initiative is for you. Now, back here in the US, we have some very major community problems still in our country. One of the biggest ones we're being confronted right now is racism. And this isn't an issue that, is only just for the US. It touches all of us. We are not born racist. Racism seems to be at this peak now in the US, and more so now in its recent years. And it seems like racism in the US, America, they're very closely tied together right now. We're wondering if it's even possible to get rid of this problem, or if it's too late to even deal with the issue. If anyone follows the news in the US, you must have seen the Black Lives Matter protests being held here in the US, all over the nation. And these protests have centered around this individual, George Floyd's, his tragic death back on May the 25th. This happened in Minneapolis. And regrettably, racism, though, it's actually existed here in the US since our founding of the country. Our Civil War ended over 155 years ago, I believe. But there's still a segment of our population that they're trying to there's a segment of our U.S. population that could be forgiven for, seeming to pretend it's still ongoing. Ironically, though, racism still remains, interwoven like a fabric of the country. This individual, George Floyd, his death is probably one of the most graphic in recent memory here in the U.S. In 2014, another individual, Eric Gardner, I believe was his name, he was actually placed in a chokehold by a white police officer. And after being arrested, he was arrested on suspicion of illegally selling loose cigarettes. And his dying words were, when he was about to die, "I can't breathe." I can only now describe the continued viewing of racism, racial violence, torture, murder, and, it's something that our country is still working on, which is why I really love the field of conflict resolution and conflict transformation and peace building, because that's a step away from these backwards incidences and problems in our country, like racism, and it kind of gives you a new and innovative approach, like a tool in your toolbox that you can use to resolve some of these, what are becoming systematic conflicts in our countries. Now, what is my vision and to serve as my country? Well, I'd like to be a source of inspiration, not just for my country, but for other people's countries. And I also want to really work together. And, my background is practice-based. I come from working with child soldiers and from human trafficking victims, and I even do localized things in schools and alternative schools here in the U.S., and I work in prisons. And, I learn a lot when I step back and I look and see what's going on around me. I don't come in with, I want to say, a designated approach. I always like to take the situation for what it is, because not all conflicts are the same, and just learn about it before I get involved. So I think that's going to be one of my main priorities right now with Peace360 initiative, is getting to know everybody that's, part of the international committee, that's doing work with everyone, and get to know them and see, what they're interested in, what they'd like to do, and, how we can follow the main vision and the dream behind the founder of Peace360 initiative. And so, thank you very much. Once again, my name is Brittany Foutz.